Alright.
Yo. Alright, hi guys, and welcome to Pokemon from Scratch, episode 3, I believe. So today, I thought we'd do a bit more testing with Lost Box. We were going to move on to Guardy, but I thought, why not give the deck more of a chance? Kind of lost with it and moved on. And honestly, it did feel good, and I had a good time playing it, so I wanted to give it another shot. So here we are. Our first matchup is against Chien-Pao. As you can tell, I'm doing this a bit differently. I've recorded this game prior because I wanted to get better audio quality for you guys, and also I can pause the games and really look through and analyze my plays a lot better. So off this hand here, we haven't got the best opener, but we're not in a terrible spot as long as we can get a good draw off the Raikou, still don't know how to say it, or a good hit off of the Pokestop. Chorus's Experiment is obviously great, but that's a going second thing. So here I decided to go for the Raikou first, and there we go. Now we're in. Battle VIP pass into a couple comfies. Going first with this deck, I like to set up just two comfies really, because I find blocking my deck up early game is really a big issue when you rush into the big, going second, turn one Greninja play, and you can't put a Sableye on your board later game, or you can't build up more than one attacker. It can get a bit problematic. So I like going first, and you're able to take that slow start. So here, I know I only run 2 Psychic Energy. I haven't had a chance to see if I've prized any energy, so I really want to keep that Psychic Energy. Now, I've got 2 cards in the prize Lost Zone here, and I know I'm aiming for 7 next turn. So here I'm debating whether I use that Lost Vacuum to get rid of the Pokestop. Now, obviously it also affects the Chien-Pao, so I end up going for it. We've now got 4 cards in the Lost Zone, because if they bounced our stadium, then obviously that wouldn't be available for us next turn, and we'd have to look for another stadium or something along the lines of a Forest Seal Stone. So we know they've already got Frigivax down. I'm expecting them to set up as many Frigivaxes as possible and really lean into the Baxcalibur play, because it's kind of what you expect from Chien-Pao. I'm not expecting them to swing turn 1. I don't actually think I've seen that, unless they're running Melanie. Maybe they could do that. But even so, losing 1 Comfy wouldn't be the end of the world, because we've got Chorus, we'd likely be able to get 1 back. And there we go. They just set up another Frigivax, attach an energy and pass. That's really good for us. Top decking the Nest Ball is also great, because now we can search and we can go for the Greninja. Those Frigivaxes on the back line don't have a Manaphy, so it's time to exploit that weakness. So here we're just going to be digging. We're digging for 2 reasons. We want 7 cards in the Lost Zone so we can Mirage Gate, and we either want a Water Energy in hand or a Mirage Gate, or we also need a switch. Well, so we found our switch in the Escape Route and we found the Mirage Gate, so now we just need to get as many things in the Lost Zone as possible and we're sorted. Perfect. It doesn't overly matter what I choose here. I go for the Cramorant over the Super Rod for early game aggression, I suppose, although Super Rod is going to be super useful in the late game if we get there, because we're going to be discarding this energy with Greninja this turn, so we need a way of getting it back. But I'm definitely planning on using the Sableye as my late game attacker. I go for a Psychic Energy here because I've got Psychic in hand, so I'm not worried about that one being discarded, whereas Lightning Energy I'm going to have to search from the deck. But that's fine, because I can do that right now if I want to. So we're going to attach it to the Raikou, and they're going to scoop. That's the strength. That's why they call it Turbo Lost Box. Being able to set up a Greninja for a swing that early game against decks like Gardevoir or Chien-Pao is really, really strong. I do think they could have come back from it. I don't think it was completely the end of the world, but obviously I don't know what they did. Maybe they only had 2 rare candies in their deck, or maybe that was all their Frigivaxes left. We honestly don't know. But moving into game 2 here, we've got a bit more of an interesting one. I believe this is against a Miraidon deck that utilizes Magnezone, and not Magnezone V. Actually, I believe Magnezone V is in here too, but I believe it's mostly a Magnezone EX, which was from the Scarlet and Violet set, Quite an interesting card. Energy Crush is a really good attack. Honestly, we're quite lucky against it though. If this was something like Arceus Duraludon, where we were going to have like 12 energies, or even like Shadow Rider Calyrex, I know it's not particularly a thing anymore, but you know, a deck where you've got loads and loads of energies, even Gardevoir to an extent, that Energy Crush for one lightning hits so hard because it's 50 for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So we've got an interesting opening hand here, but once again, we get into the Battle VIP Pass. We lose a single Comfey, but it's not the end of the world. We've still got 2 in the deck. I'm debating the Greninja here, but I end up going for the Comfey, because if I get the Greninja, realistically, I'm going to want to draw into a way of getting another Comfey out. So instead of going for that, we're just going to go straight for the Comfey. Ultra Ball is really strong. Artisan is also really strong. I don't know what they're playing. I don't want to give them too much advantage, so I go for the Ultra Ball. The other thing is also I can utilize the Ultra Ball this turn if I have to, whereas Artisan I can't. I debate using the Escape Rope or attaching the energy. I don't particularly know whether it's right or wrong either way. I think saving the Escape Rope is probably better, because we know Regieleki's attack can make you do less damage, so I might want to be able to Escape Rope around that later. Luminion's really helpful to search out those supporters, so it'd be potentially good to help us play around Iono, but obviously it'd be shuffled back into the deck anyway. We've got a Colress in hand, so I think that's kind of the best we do. So next turn it won't be too hard to get more into the Lost Zone, so we can go for a Mirage Gate play. So this is where we find out they are playing the Miraidon deck. Miraidon's really cool because Tandem Unit is effectively just a Battle VIP Pass on its own, which, you know, who doesn't love that? Also, not only first stand. I do believe it's only for electric Pokemon, but in a Regieleki VMAX deck where Regieleki is basically there to give the lightning attackers more damage, or electric type attackers more damage, you know, they're all going to be electric. Our opponent does do an interesting play here. My theory behind why they do them, they attack the way they do, is that they wanted to try and lock us into the Dragonite. Getting rid of the Pokestop isn't too scary for us. We don't run Path to the Peak, but I am tempted by the idea of putting it in, especially for the matchups against, if we had, I don't know, something like Ting-Lu, which can kind of shut down Lost Box. There you go, that gets around it. But also Escape Rope can get around the matchup. Maybe it's better against Lugia, but it's something we can theory craft. The energy for the retreat into the Magna Zone. They hit 2 electric energies off the electric generator, so they are going to be able to swing this turn. So they pull out the Dragonite and they start doing damage on that right away. So our plan this turn is going to be set up that Dragonite and go for a knockout. We've got the Lost Vacuum, we've got a Colress, and now we've got Mirage Gates. I'm guessing grab. I'm wondering whether grabbing both Mirage Gates was right. We know we can get into them. We've got Water Energy in hands. We only need 1 Water Energy to be in the deck. So we can use the Nest Ball to check whether we've got the energy in the deck here. We'll grab the Radiant Greninja and now we'll go and check to see if we've got that energy. And we see we've got plenty of Water Energy. No Psychic. That might be a thing later. Using Sableye, especially against decks that utilize VMAXs, can be a really good finisher. So we really hope we find that before we hit the late game. But we're hoping to take 2 prizes this turn, so we're not too worried. We're going to swap into the Comfeys to try and get those last few cards into the Lost Zone. We see a Sableye and an Electric Energy. We take the energy. We know we've got a Sableye left in the deck. We run quite a lot of Super Rods, so I'm not particularly scared about discarding energies and Sableyes and stuff. Forest Seal Stone is also very useful. So we are missing 2 cards in the Lost Zone, so we can use the Lost Vacuum and the Forest Seal Stone. And then we'll go up 7. So I'm going to attach the energy instead of using both Mirage Gates. I do believe I make a misplay in a second with the Mirage Gates, but we'll deal with that when we get there. So there's the other Sableye, the Colress. Gonna need a switch. So we're just going through and we're thinking about what we might want. The Superroid is quite useful here. We've got the escape rope, so we're not too worried about the switch. But it does put us in a bit of an awkward spot if they put up one of their 1 prizes. But knowing they want to go into the EX, the stage 2, knocking out 1 prizer isn't necessarily a problem. So we're going to attach our final 2 energy from our deck here to our Dragonite, and then we'll place the Cramorant before we switch. This is so we can ensure that if they put up a 1 prizer, we take the Cram knockout. Otherwise, we're going to take the knockout with the Dragonite. For some reason, we play the Mirage Gate. This was the misplay. I think in my head I super rodded already, but also that wouldn't particularly matter because it would just get us lightning energy. I was thinking of trying to switch without using escape rope because ideally I want to take a 2 prizer. But then we bench the Cramorant and we make the play we should have made in the first place. And we have wasted some resources, which isn't good. But you know, sometimes in the moment you just lose track of things like that. I already knew what was in the deck, so realistically I should have known better. But I'm not too upset by the play. It's not the end of the world. So here we go, we're going to take the 2 prize cards. That stops a Regieleki VMAX. Obviously Dragonite does damage a lot of our bench. We're not against a Radiant Greninja deck and we're not against Lost Box, so I'm not too worried about Sableye. And we do also hit our Psychic Energy, which means we can grab our Sableye if we want to. So the rest of our game really is going to depend on how our opponent plays here to what we're going to do. I'm not expecting Dragonite to live this turn, but if Dragonite does live this turn, that's another huge amount of damage that will be really useful for setting up for a KO with our Sableye later in the game. So that's my plan currently at this moment. So the rare candy, so they go straight into the Magnezone EX here. So Energy Crush won't get the KO. So they need to be able to do his other attack. So I believe they need 1 more energy. Obviously they're going to need an electric generator, or obviously Flaffy is very good for that. We get Ionode here, but we're not particularly sad. We only lose 1 card, and our hand wasn't particularly strong anyway. You could argue with the boss's orders our hand is stronger, but they do find the electric generator. And it looks like they found an energy. So they could go for the Pulse Launcher here and take a knockout on the Dragonite. However, instead they set up the next Magnezone. It's a bit of an interesting play. The Energy Crush, of course, isn't a KO. So now we're going to hit really hard. In fact, I believe we take a knockout on the Magnezone here. Although we do debate, because here I'm wondering. Colress's Experiment or Boss's Orders? Boss's Orders up on the Magnezone V puts us at 2 prize cards from victory, while they're still on 6. So that'll make it really easy for us to set up a checkmate situation. However, Colress is one of the best support cards in the game because of the sheer amount of hand advantage you get. So I'm debating. I know I've already got a good amount of cards in the Lost Zone. I know I've already cycled through a lot of my deck. With the timer going, I end up going for the Magnezone V. I want the 2 guaranteed prize cards here. My thinking is they're going to have to spend a turn knocking out this Dragonite V anyway, because if they don't, that's another swing, and that's potentially game. They don't know how many bosses I'm running. We get our Raikou and our Manaphy. Neither of them particularly useful in this matchup, although they do fill up their bench rather quickly, so Raikou could be useful for that. Seeing what they're searching out. I'm assuming it's going to be another Magnezone EX. Although it depends on if they have the rare candy, otherwise it'll probably be a Flaffy to get the Dynamo to go. So they get rid of the bosses and the Nest Ball. Seeing a boss go is always a nice feeling. Boss's Orders is such a good card. So that's the Flaffy. Assuming they'll Dynamotor up and they'll use Pulse Launcher with this Magnezone. However, I'm wrong. So they're going to set up for the next turn. Once again, Iono is annoying here, but we didn't particularly have a good hand anyway. Drawing into 2 switching cards is perfect, so we're just going to be able to use both flower selectings and go from there. And AG Crush for the knockout, so they take their first 2 prize cards. So ideally here, I want to be able to get something down to about 120 life remaining. That's my thought, so I'm probably going to try and swing out one of the Miraidons with Cramorant if I can help it, but obviously it depends on what they put up. Grab another Comfey. That was more of a Hail Mary than anything. I just top decked the Swing Heavy Ball, so we go for it. I think the Clara is probably the best bet here. But then again, it depends on what we've got, so let's check. We do have the Psychic Energy, but we know we've got a Sableye in deck, so we could search for that with the Nest Ball. But then we won't have the energy for it. I think Clara is the way to go. So now we should switch into the other one and use Flower Selecting again. So obviously if we get a Colress, that Clara is still not as good as a Colress. We get a Mirage Gate and a Super Rod. Super Rod is, well, they're both very good here. We know we've only got 1 Mirage Gate left, but we still go for the Super Rod because the energy. But now we can grab out the Psychic Energy to keep it in hand, ready for if we do get a Sableye, so we don't need the Mirage Gate as much, and then grab back our Dragonite and our Comfey just in case. We could even discard the Water Energy. I think looking back on it, I would definitely discard the Water Energy. I'm not sure what we do here. We know we want to Escape Rope anyway to try and get them to swap out of the Magnezone, because then anything they put in could potentially be these prize cards. Realistically, I don't know why I got rid of the Psychic Energy. That's on me. So we get another Super Rod here, able to get our energies back since for some reason we got rid of our Psychic Energy. Could put down another Comfey, but I don't particularly want to fill up the bench. And they do already have something we want to attack. So attaching the Water Energy here, retreating and swinging with the Cramorant is probably our play. The Escape Rope is an option because we are trying to be careful with energy, but we've got the 2 Super Rods in hand and we can Super Rod them in this turn if we really want to. Looking back, I'd say we'll do one of each, but it kind of muddies our draws a bit. Currently we don't have the Sableye, and we're running low on materials to search out something like Sableye, so it's a bit risky. But that's kind of what Lost Box is all about. You're all about taking those gambles. We know we've still got a Sableye in the deck, and we know we've got Psychic Energy in the deck. So we've got 6 cards of digging to try and find it on the board currently. As long as our opponent doesn't do something that wipes out all of our Comfeys, we're good. We don't mind losing Cramorant. Losing Radiant Greninja would be sad, but not too bad. It's, you know, just in case we draw like another Water Energy, we can use it to dig even deeper. So they get the second Magnezone EX here. I'm not particularly worried about it, because I'm just going to try and avoid it at all costs. Another Regieleki. So now they're going to retreat, probably put a Magnezone EX, and take the knockout. So we had no energy on the board, so they had to take the 30 damage. They couldn't just use Energy Crush. So now we'll just put up one of our Comfeys and start digging. Drawing into Colrus's is huge. So the Mirage Gate is a must, and the Switch Cart is a must as well. Raikou isn't necessarily a must. I'd probably take, looking back, I'd probably take the Super Rod. We'll see what we take here. Pokestop we don't really want to use because we don't want to mill out our Sableye. I know we could put it back, but then we've still got to dig it out afterwards. So we've already used our V-Star here, so we'll take the Lost Vacuum. Now we need to switch. We're not particularly worried about the position their Pokemon end in, because we're going to use Sableye's Lost Mine attack. We've already got enough in the Lost Zone. That is our win con. We've got a couple turns to dig for it, so even if we don't get it this turn, it's not the end of the world. Our opponent is thinking very carefully about what they put up. Put up the other Magnet Zone. We're just going to put up one of the Comfeys. With this Mirage Gate, well, there we go, we've got the Sableye. So now with Mirage Gate, we can attach the Lightning Energy that's still in our deck to the Comfey, and then we can retreat and attach the Psychic Energy to the Sableye. So there we go. And now we've got game by putting the 120 onto that Miraidon. Technically, we only need 110, so we could put 10 elsewhere as well, but there's no point. And our opponent notices this and gives us game. So 2 very convincing games with Lost Box. When it works, and it's quite fun kind of dancing around those bigger HP Pokemon. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Pokemon from Scratch.